Well, guys, when it comes to this election, I'm not going to get overconfident. However, I believe that Trump is winning big, very big votes. Now, the polls, told you guys, don't really read into the polls. But however, these polls, man, are showing that Kamala Harris is way behind Joe Biden and Hillary's pace back in 2016 and 2020. Her internal polls, guys, must be so bad that she's actually out there going around giving interviews. And folks, she actually showed up on Fox News. Remember, Donald Trump proposed a debate with Fox News. Kamala Harris rejected because apparently at that time she was quote unquote ahead in the polls. But now it's so bad, guys. She actually is forced to go out there and even do an interview with Fox News. Now, this is the first time that she's actually been on a right-leaning network. And boy, Bret Baier took her to the woodshed, folks. That was an unmitigated disaster. Now, if people who are undecided actually watched that interview was a full endorsement, folks, of President Trump. You should go out there and vote for President Trump after watching that debate, guys. I mean, Kamala Harris completely fell apart. That was bad, guys. That was really bad. That had to be one of the most awful performances by Kamala Harris we've ever seen. I mean, she couldn't answer a question straight whatsoever. Now, how would she actually react if she was in the room with Putin, Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, our foreign enemies? She can't negotiate with these people, guys. And I believe, man, if she actually gets into the White House, boy, our national security is going to be in serious trouble, even more so than now. This woman is the worst presidential candidate we've ever seen. I've said that before, guys, and this just reaffirms my position. She is the worst presidential candidate ever for any party. I mean, if you thought Joe Biden was bad in 2020, she's way worse than Joe Biden, guys. Way worse. And it's bad, guys. It is really, really bad. Now, shout out to Joe Biden, guys, because Joe Biden is the reason why they actually have Kamala Harris running for the Democrats. Remember, when he was actually forced out, he didn't initially say, hey, I'm supporting Kamala Harris. Then all of a sudden, guys, that tweet came out on X where he threw his support behind Kamala Harris. And guess what happened? That's when the wheels fell off, guys. Barack Obama, who's probably the most powerful man in the Democratic Party, waited about 5 days before he endorsed Kamala Harris. Obama had to know that she would be a disaster. I believe that Barack Obama knew she was bad. Now, I don't agree with Barack Obama's policies, but there's no doubt about it, guys. This man is smart. He was smart enough to know that she was that bad, but eventually he had to give in. And there seems to be nothing saving Kamala Harris. She is a disaster, folks. So let's go ahead and get into this. This is bad. Right over here. Bret Baier questions rattled Kamala Harris on deadly consequences of her open border policies in Fox News interview. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the border was the first question, man. The first question. And she fell apart. She completely fell apart. Now, going on Fox News, maybe she was trying to get some moderate Democrats or slightly to the right Democrats to vote for her. She didn't do herself any favors whatsoever. This whole interview, man, was just so bad that President Trump put this out. He posted the whole entire Fox News interview, about 27 minutes. And he said, our newest ad just dropped. The whole entire interview was a campaign ad for President Trump, really. I'm Donald Trump and I approve this message. This is how bad it was, folks. It was really, really bad. Now, I'm going to jump over here to X. Breaking 911, they actually have some of the major clips here. Now, when it came to this interview, man, it was so bad that Kamala's people were in the ear of Bret Baier and telling him, hey, we throwing the towel. They actively went out there to end this interview, folks. It was that bad. I mean, this is after the interview, and this is a Fox News discussion on the interview. Listen in to Bret Baier right here.
Dana, you've been on the other side. You've been on the rapper as a press secretary interviewing a president. And, you know, I'm talking like 4 people waving their hands like it's got to stop. So, Martha, final. Yeah, I had to dismount there at the end. There's so many things, and she maybe should do more.
Yeah, 4 people, 4 of Kamala's people in his ear saying, stop it. This is bad. This needs to end. This is how bad it was, guys. I mean, they were actively throwing in the towel. Remember Rocky IV? Apollo Creed is getting just destroyed by Ivan Drago. And Duke is telling Rocky, throw the damn towel. Rocky has it in his hand, but it's a little bit too late. And then Apollo Creed gets knocked out and he dies. That is what happened to Kamala Harris. Now, look at this, guys. I told you, she cannot run from her record. She can't do it. Look at this. Kamala refuses to say if she still supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for inmates. Let's go and watch this, guys.
It's every commercial, but many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed.
Wrong.
You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries
you know what, you got to take responsible for what happened
presidency.
in your administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in this presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment surgeries?
I will follow the law, just as I think Donald Trump would say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think he spent $20 million on those ads trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas, at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again, his policy was no different. Look at where we are, though.
They say
on plans for the American people, I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates.
Wow. This is bad, guys.
Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy, his would make them weaker, would ignite inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at...
Wow. That was bad. That was bad right there, guys. Now, going on, right down, where is it at? Where is it at? Just saw it down. Oh, here we are. Here we are. Comrade Kamala says that, quote, my presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. I represent a new generation of leadership. However, when she was actually asked, what was it, last week? She said that she wouldn't have changed anything from the decisions she and Biden actually made. So this is a continuation of the Biden agenda, in my opinion. But let's go and listen in.
Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago, and the business sector, and others who can contribute to the decisions that I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply of housing in America and bringing down the cost of housing, addressing the issue of small businesses, which is about working with the private sector to bring more capital and access to capital to our small business leaders, including my plan for
Joe Biden, you're not Donald.
Okay, so you heard that right there, guys. Now, this is bad right here. This part right here is really, really bad because of Kamala Harris. Her illegal aliens that actually she allowed into the country killed people, killed Americans. Look here, heartless. Kamala refuses to take any responsibility for the murder of Joycelyn Nungare, who was brutally raped and strangled to death by illegal aliens who crossed her open border. Quote, I am so sorry for a loss, but let's listen in.
I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Joycelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I am so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you want to answer
in all fairness, I told you, I feel awful.
I will let.
In other words, but Trump. That is what she went to. But Trump. This was not happening under President Trump. Donald Trump secured the border. And then Kamala and Joe Biden come in and they reverse all of Trump's executive orders. And then illegal aliens flooded in. Not only that, guys, I've actually talked about this before. About 10 miles away from me, Pasadena, Texas, one of Biden and Harris's illegal aliens raped and killed a little girl. Yeah, courtesy of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. But let's go to this next one here, guys. Kamala can't give a single straight answer to Bret Baier. This is bad. So let's listen in. Here we go.
Tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is the first question.
How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you,
now,
just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
it's a
an
rough
immigration
estimate of 6 million people
that
have been
needs to be-
released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the CHIPS and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the... Yes.
You heard that right there? Brett Baer says it was a pathway to citizenship, and then Kamala Harris freaks out because she doesn't want the people to actually know what they were trying to do.
May I finish responding, please? But you have to let me finish,
You had the White House and the House and the Senate, and they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border.
Wow. So there you have it right there, guys. Now, that's the last clip I actually have right here because I want to jump back over here because there's another part of this right here where Kamala Harris really does snap, and the Democrats are out there trying to turn something that Trump said into something that wasn't the way they actually said it. Watch this.
The American people, he's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
He came prepared right here.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Brett, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that
specific... No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you,
that was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it.
Well, look at what they're doing to Trump. The Harris-Biden administration is trying to have President Trump locked up. Funny how that works. And she just lost. Now, right here near the end, this is where somewhere around right there, where Kamala's people get into the ear of Brett Baier and say, you got to end this. This is bad. So let's start right here.
That we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a decision
and there are critics
that they feel.
who look at what the administration did and say and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things
There's more to say. I have much more to say,
there are a lot of things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and that's why we
I invite
invited you
everyone
here.
to go to KamalaHarris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
And that's why
intend
we
to do to
invited you
strengthen
here,
our economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
And
they're giving me a hard rap
Well,
here.
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wow. So that was so bad, man. Kamala's people were telling Brett Baier, in this, stop it. We give up. It's over with. Folks, the more she talks, the worse it actually gets for her. I feel very, very confident, folks, about President Trump, especially his chances of winning, I should actually say. Because the more Kamala talks, the worse it gets. Now, early voting starts in Texas on Monday. I'm going to vote the first day. I'm going to get up and vote early on Monday. I highly suggest all Texans do the same thing. If your state has early voting, go out there. Vote for Trump. Vote red down the board, man, because he needs a Senate and a House to get things done, to actually reverse all of the damage that the Democrat socialists have done. Folks, I believe it's over with for Kamala Harris. I really, really do. This was the last straw right here. Maybe she's actually going to be doing some other stuff, man. But when President Trump posts a whole entire interview and he basically says, man, this is a campaign ad for us, he's right about that. Gonna leave right there, guys. That's just my thoughts on this. What do you guys think of this? Black and White Network fans, let us know what you think about all this in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you next time.